something I've learned from my travels as well, and I've heard you talk about this. Essentially, people are good, and we find this out when we take risks and we make friends. But the evil in the world, the dark aspects that are there, you can find that anywhere. You can find that off the grid in a small community, levels of judgment, hatred towards people that are different. You can find them in the city. But the universe works in strange, mysterious ways. And sometimes it brings us challenges in order to help us evolve to becoming stronger, better, more functional beings. And in our case, Freeman, teachers of truths that the world is ready for. So sometimes we go through things that are very unique to us because of the path that we're on. So I do tend to agree with what you've talked about on a lot of radio shows, that by traveling and doing such things, you can see the magic of the world and this country, the magical places, sacred places. I didn't know that the San Luis Valley that I'm staying in had hundreds of years of UFO activity, of UFOs going into mountains, legends of, the star people that the Navajo and the Hopi and the Zuni all subscribe to. And then I come here only because I just followed the synchronicity, and now I'm learning that there's a lot going on here that doesn't necessarily manifest on the physical plane. There's a lot of subtle energy here, and it's just like when I look at my whole life and your travels, it's like one long story with a lot of different chapters, but it's still the same story, the same experience of journeying in a way to sacred places and important places for us to be there, in a way, bear witness.
Well, people limit themselves with their own concepts of reality, and they don't know what they don't know, and so you don't go out there for it. In this last trip, we ended up finding the Ark of the Covenant twice. We found the 10 Commandments on the top of a mountain in New Mexico. We met vortex mathematicians. We met research enlightenment ghost hunters. We met Tesla scientists. We saw Jesus crucified. We visited every Occupy across the United States, You
did. You also saw Portland's Occupy, which was as wild as New York City. All right, folks, we'll be back with our very special guest, Freeman, from freemantv.com. Tonight's Strange Universe broadcast features our very special guest, Freeman Fly from freemantv.com. And you can support his work by checking out his book, Weird Stuff. And we're going to get into Sandy Hook here in just a minute. But Freeman, I got to ask you, when you talk about Jesus being crucified, you witnessing this event, there's not a lot of humans that can say they've...
There actually are. You can see it every day at 2:40 at the Holy Land Experience. You better get there early or you will not get a seat. I was blown away by this, Alex. Later we saw Jesus resurrected at Mount Shasta. But in Florida, near Orlando, there is a theme park made by the Trinity Broadcast Network, right? I wanted to get on the Jan Shrout wig ride, but that didn't exist. But they have the Holy Land Experience. And what we were doing with Miss Emily, Miss Emily was the school bus. It was the Mystery School Mobile Media Lab experiment. And I wanted to see if I could travel around with Wi-Fi and broadcast our adventures live. I wanted to show people the miraculous live. Here we are now. We've got this new technology, and I wanted to share with people how this all actually functions. But it was, a lot of work to try and get everything posted up while you're living it. Because I was never alone. I never had a moment. It was always, from one person to the next. It was a mighty adventure, an amazing year. But no real time to do extracurricular things like work, but I mean, on the internet. Anyway, so we were actually broadcasting all of this nearly live onto YouTube and on freemantv.com under the Miss Emily stuff, and you can watch our adventures as we traveled. So you can go watch the entire Jesus death and resurrection scenario that I filmed. It's epic. It's right up there with Mel Gibson. There's blood, there's gushing, and what really shocked me were that it was mostly old ladies and little children, and a lot of these children all wearing their Mickey Mouse ears. These little children are traumatized. Yeah, we actually had a young girl with us as well, and as she watched this horrific scene, I mean, we really had to leave. What amazed me, Alex, was the children that were there, and you can watch in the film footage that I have up the ladies crying, the ones that can't look at this bloody Jesus as he's being dragged around by the Romans, and we had a young girl there with us as well, and she just couldn't take the trauma of this scenario. I mean, she just wanted to leave. And we really wanted to hang out because it was the grand opening of the Church of All Nations. And this grand ceremony that they were opening this smoke and mirrors cathedral. It was literally smoke and mirrors. And I mean, it makes such a mockery of Christianity. And the fact that you could go and watch Jesus crucified every day at 2:40, and the ego of this guy. Actually, Bill Maher was there for Religulous. He filmed Jesus. And I mean, what kind of ego does the guy who plays Jesus have? I mean, you got to see the footage to understand. So go over to the freemantv.com and check it out at Miss Emily. Yeah, let's keep the flow going. We've lost Alex a little bit here. We want to keep, let's go ahead and move right to this, because, this idea of the death and resurrected hero is something that has been continually coming up in my research, especially when it comes down to comic books. And if you look at Superman, he really is an Elohim. He is well, it was actually created by, Schumann and Schuster, the Jewish gentleman who, named him Kal-El, which means the voice of God in Hebrew. This is Superman, who was sent. He was the only son of the Father from on high, sent down to save humanity. It's very Jesus character right there. And I began to watch the fall of this comic book realm, and along with it, the minds of children. And this is what really concerned me. And I mean, since the 50s, they've had the Comic Code Authority, and there was a lot of comic book burning back in the day. But we're in an era now. It's known as the Aeon of Horus. It's the Aeon of the crowned and conquering child. It was prophesied by Aleister Crowley when he wrote the Book of the Law and outlined this new era that we would be heading into for the next 2,000 years. And Horus, this son of Osiris and Isis, was a vengeful god out seeking vengeance for his father's death. And this is the storyline that you're going to continually find running out and playing throughout our world right now in the storyline of the media and how it's written into our story. Sorry, just checking every now and again to see if we can get Alex back on the air. But I'll carry on with this because it leads into this Aurora story. It leads into Sandy Hook. You go back to the Batman character. Now, the death and resurrection I was getting to. Superman died and went through a death and resurrection, came back to life. Now, this was at the same moment that Batman was going through his death or broken back. He didn't actually die, but he was brought back by paranormal means. At the same moment, back in the 90s, about 93, Superman and Batman were both being brought down to their death. And at this moment, Image Comics was coming around. And they were taking over. The artists and the conceptual people from DC World and from Marvel had broken off and formed their own independent comic realms, and basically replaced Superman and Batman with their new modern heroes. And this was Hellspawn. Our superhero had become a Hellspawn. We had gone from Superman, the boy in blue, who actually turned out to be a government asset. Superman, after his death, was brought back actually as 4 different beings. He was a cyborg Superman. He was a clone of himself. There was a boy who was a clone of him. There was an alien Superman and a Man of Steel. And these 4 came out after Superman's death to claim that they were the resurrected Superman. But, of course, none of them were. And Kal-El, actually, the original Superman, came back. But when he returned, he no longer had his cape. He no longer had his blue suit. He was now dressed all in black with pistols on his hips. He was the military Superman. It was time to shift the consciousness of children into this mindset to bring these things about. This is why I open with Chicken Little and the idea, watch Wag the Dog. And we start to realize how this story gets played out. But the comic book realms has been prophesying the very events that are occurring right now, and it's mind-boggling. And if you look to Grant Morrison, the author of the comic book The Invisibles, and he starts to discuss it in the occult perspective. He starts to say, look, I'm writing these comic books, and they're coming true. He's freaked out by it. He's amazed by it. He's also a studier of Aleister Crowley in the books of magic. And he learns that he's actually able to manipulate the Matrix. He's actually able to hack the Matrix by designing, through artistic, creative will, the reality that he wishes to have in his world. He designed girls that came into his life that were the characters in his comic books, but they all turned out to be wrong. But he challenged each and every person in that audience to actually try it themselves. Make a sigil. Think of what you want. Make it something possible. Write out a magical sigil and then turn it on. And he swears by it. So now let's look at this situation. We have comic books with the potential of hacking the Matrix, hacking reality, and posting things into it. You know, you reach this point, and this happened to me at Y2K. I reached a point where I'm watching them capping the Great Pyramid with gold. I'm watching them burn the river Styx or Thames at the speed of the sun. I'm watching them make the sun rise in the west. And I'm looking to myself and I'm going, oh my God, you know, nothing is real. All this crap, everything everybody believes is not real. The capping of the Great Pyramid with gold, that's real. That's the money power. That's the power of the people that are ruling the planet. You know, this is their mindset. And at that moment, I could not go back to it. I'm cast into this role now that I can't escape any better than you can, because we can no longer jack back into the Matrix and act like everything's happy-ho. So we have one option, really, and that is to get out here and try and share our truth as much as we possibly can, or become an author. You know, this is your second option, because the way that we are, we have to change the world. We're not looking for a corporate lead. We're not looking for a way to make money. We're trying to change the very essence of existence, and we are willing to cast everything aside to do that, because we have no choice. We really don't. And I've been homeless 3-4 times in the last 7 years while doing this show, you know? And, you know, I try to carry on, and if I don't, I don't. And people yell at me because I'm not on the air. I'm like, look, you know, I don't have a roof over my head. What do you want? And they don't recognize really what we're going through. And a lot of people think that we're out here because we think we're some hot shit or something, you know, and it's not really an ego-driven thing. It's actually that we've now moved into reality, and we can no longer play the pretend world that everybody else exists in. And we're at this moment as well where minimum input leads to maximum output. Alex, if you and I and Frater X and Mark Passio and Lennon Honor and everyone else I have in my friendship agenda list, you know, we had the power to unite, to be able to use our, you know, and $5, people, $5 makes a huge difference.
He's right. Man, Freeman's seen a lot. All right, we'll be back.